Grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4. Everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
Welcome to Tales from the Field. We are back and better than ever. My name is Bradley Ball, and it is so good to have you with us. Last week, Daniel Taylor published how to perform a point-in-time restore in Azure SQL Managed. And since then, on Tuesday, we had our Azure Data Community Roundtable, and I published how to integrate OneLake with Azure Databricks on Microsoft Fabric. And then on Monday, Daniel Taylor was back again with, oh no, drop database, how to restore a deleted database from Azure SQL Managed instance. So much to do, so much to see. You don't want to miss a thing. If this is your first time finding your way over to Tales from the Field, give us a like and give us a subscribe. We drop content every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On Monday and Wednesday, we have our MS Tech Bits, and today is Tuesday, so it is the Azure Data Community Roundtable. If you want to interact with the show, it is so incredibly easy to do so. We are streaming live on our hub over at YouTube, and all you have to do is make a comment on the stream, and one of my amazing co-hosts will find that comment. They will add it to the show, and you will be a part of that show. Speaking of my amazing co-host, of course, I am joined by Mr. Andreas Padilla, the mountain man himself, Daniel Taylor, Mr. the man in the hat himself, Josh Luedeman, and then, of course, the past is behind us, but the current time is a present and a gift, and that's because we get more of Neeraj Jhaveri in our life. That's right. We're joined by my friend and yours, Neeraj Jhaveri. So much to do and so much to look at. So first off, what do we want you to do? Well, this is the Azure Data Community Roundtable. So we want you to go and join the Azure Data Community. And how do you do that? Well, you head over to Microsoft.com and you find a user group. You find a group near you. You find the activities that are going on within the community. This is your one-stop shop to be able to find all those great things. And then once you have found those user groups, those virtual user groups that you could participate in, what do you need to do? Well, you need to know locally when there is an event in your area, and you want to head over to SQLSaturday.com. You can see at the end of the year, we have SQL Saturday Lima, but already there's a BI and Analytics edition for Atlanta, Georgia. There's one for Austin, Texas. We've got another for Joinville, for Atlanta, for Jacksonville, and for Cartigo, all the way in August of next year. So you can start your planning. Now, at every single one of the events, they are free to the general public. There might be a fee for lunch at some of them, but that's optional. You get great training from folks from Microsoft and also MVPs from Microsoft, top consultants in the field, people working in the field just like you. It's a wonderful way to be able to volunteer and also participate in the community. And of course, after you're done looking over at SQLSaturday.com, where do we want you to go? We want you to go over to Data Saturday and take a look at some of the best online training, the exact same community, but this time it's coming to you in a virtual format. And of course, one other thing we want you to do, we want you to head over to our Fabric Learning Group, where we have close to 1,700 members right now. And you can see here's our latest post by Rui Carraro. Thanks for joining and being a part of that group. We appreciate you. And there's so many wonderful things to be able to do and see and participate in this group. This is your hub managed by us and also by the product group. And we would love to see you being a part of that. Woo. All right. I was going to say, I don't know about y'all, but this weekend was a busy one for myself. Josh and I ended up at two different cookie parties. And as a diabetic, I only had one cookie. I was very proud of myself. Had some high-key cookies sitting at home so I could go home and enjoy the Oreo flavor of those low-carb, delicious cookies. It's as close as I'm going to get. Andreas, where were you up to this weekend?
Oh, it was a tough weekend of finishing up my Christmas lights, dealing with a very sick kid, and then making sure that my 3-year-old daughter's Fist of Fury did not get into my train set. Because she has little fingers and she wants to squeeze everything. So, yeah.
Well, is he feeling better at this point in time? Obviously, you didn't get to make your weekend plans.
Yeah, I know he's coming around. He's had a rough 2-3 days, but I mean, he's a sponge and a magnet for every disease that comes through that school. So
I hear you. As a matter of fact, when my kids were young, I used to call them my little carrier monkeys.
Yeah.
Goodness only knew what they were going to bring home this time. All right. So who else? I was gonna say, Neeraj, how about you? How was your weekend?
Mine was good. Just we are just packing because we are going to be moving this weekend into the new house. So been packing,
Ooh.
packing, packing. That's all we did last week. But New York weather sucked. So it's been raining crazy and flurries once in a while. So that is good.
Well, I was gonna say congratulations to you, man. You've
Thanks.
been working
Yeah.
on that house for a long time. That's some good
Yeah.
stuff there. And
So how many cookies did Josh have? You had one, but how many did Josh take it?
question, Josh, how'd you do?
I'm telling you right now, I played the fifth, and that is all I'm going to say about that. I
I
will
was
say there were some great cookies. There was probably my favorite, besides obviously my wife's pumpkin cookie with cream cheese frosting, which is enough to bring any person to their knees in delight. Is the second place cookie was definitely, it was a peanut butter based cookie, and they put like not full size Reese's peanut butter cups, but
It's
the next
massive.
one down. Yeah, it was big enough. I mean, but it wasn't like the full normal size wide ones, but it was like the not as wide but taller ones right in the middle of it. Smash it right down, and a lot of peanut butter cookie dough around
Wow,
it.
that sounds
That was my
interesting.
favorite. And then they
Yeah,
dropped in peanut butter and chocolate chips too.
I was living vicariously via Josh and my daughter because they had a hot chocolate bar, and they had iced coffee station, and then there was like all these wonderful snacks. Now I'll be honest, on the healthy side, I had some absolutely fantastic navy beans or garbanzo beans. I'm not sure what it was, but it was a nice white bean, but it almost had like a chimichurri sauce on top of it. It was fabulous. One of my favorite things. And then there was a really nice arugula salad.
Nice.
And then the Saturday party was less cookie driven, but there were a lot of good appetizers and stuff. So Saturday for me, it was the empanadas appetizer, and then my personal favorite, and it's one I brought, but I love it and I haven't had it in a long time. It's called a pregnant pickle. It was a recipe my wife taught me from when we were doing she was doing a lot of baby showers. She had me make an appetizer she'd heard about. It's a whole dill pickle wrapped with cream cheese and ham. So it's like you spread cream cheese on the ham, roll it up on the pickle, and then slice it into little discs. The dill gets softened by the cream of the cream cheese, the saltiness of the ham. I just hadn't made them in a few years. I was kind of glad I got asked to make them.
They were absolutely delicious. It was a wonderful snack, but I'm not going to lie. The entrandas were definitely flying, but we're going to skip past that and go straight to a quick. So Dan, I see you've got a holiday cup there. I'm not going to make you talk while you're drinking. Any fun stuff from you this weekend?
Yeah, so no, it's this weekend. We ended up canceling because we were going to go. Jacksonville Zoo has the largest, they're calling it the Asian lights display. And we were supposed to go this weekend, but there was a 90% chance of rain. So we're going this weekend instead of last weekend. So it was a relaxing weekend. Just hung around and lived vicariously through y'all. It was like, oh, I want to be there. I want to be there. And so it was a good weekend though. Spent it with family, had dinner. Played some Diablo 4, but yeah,
Nice.
good relax.
Never a bad time. If anybody ends up on World of Warcraft, you got to hit me up. I'm back over there. All right, now enough of that.
Really?
Let's get straight over to the reason that folks are here. I got to tell you, I fell in. You had me at ham. Our good buddy Tom LaRock. Tom, it was so good to see you at Live 360. We are excited to see you again next year. But I mean, talk about kicking off the holidays right. The best place in the world to be is down at Live 360 when it's the holiday time. It was just absolutely fantastic. Myself, Dan, and Neeraj were all there. And speaking of, we presented on one of my favorite things in this world, Fabric. And I fell in love with a piece of technology recently, and it almost mirrors my admiration for this man. And of course, you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one, the only, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. And he's got How I Fell in Love with Microsoft Data Activator by Mikhail Rozema.
Yep, nice written article. the reason I like this article was, one, he mentions the Fabric part which went GA this Ignite, but he also mentions the Data Activator, which was a public preview that was announced during the Ignite timeframe. What Data Activator, for people who have not, is basically collecting the logs in real time. You can create alerts, you can create notifications based on how the stuff is working on it. Eventually it will go GA soon, but it goes over the whole article how the Data Activator is going to make a game changer in there, right? How you can end to end see what the processes are going to be, and that's how the timings and all the stuff would be given it out to it. So definitely something that gives you insights of what Data Activator is and why it should be very important in your environment to play around with it or get it activated in your environment.
Yeah, and I absolutely love Data Activator. We're working on some interesting stuff for the demo, for a demo, and we're eventually going to have a video on Data Activator. But Data Activator to me has so many possibilities, so many potential things that we can do with it. The capability for us to ingest, report on, and then have alerts. And here's the thing: typically, to be able to make something happen with data, what do you have to do? You have to see the data, and then you have to be able to make a decision off of it. But with Data Activator and Reflex, when the data comes in and you hit a certain threshold that you have set, it immediately triggers an action to alert you to it. Again, something I'm very excited over. Another thing that I was very excited about, I found this blog by Michelle Gutazzi. And Michelle has a blog on the top 5 reasons to use Microsoft Fabric. This was a wonderful overview coming out of Ignite. And one of the things that she talked about, I'm going to hit her 5, but you need to go read the blog. And again, the links to everything are in the description of this. So please go check out the wonderful content by the creators in the community that we're featuring. But she top 5 all-in-one software as a service, talking about all the different things that we have available to us within Microsoft Fabric. Then she has no need to move or import data, which we all know about with shortcuts and wonderful things like that. No need to pre-allocate your resources, but you still can. The capability to scale up, scale down, auto scale and pause. And then also the different flexibility that we have for pricing, 7 different pricing options. And then she wraps up to her conclusions and oversights. Again, just a wonderful article, full of a lot of insight. Speaking of which, of course, when this person comes to the table, I mean, first off, they've got such good looking facial hair. They always look like they've got deep insights and deep thoughts that they're ready to give. Like the one from our good friend, Thomas LeBlanc, Fabric Personas. Dan Taylor, tell me what we got right here.
Yeah, so, and I need to thank Neeraj here because Thomas LeBlanc puts together this article on the different personas within the Microsoft Fabric environment, but an easy way to hit them. Microsoft went through and organized these items, and inside the Power BI portal, when we hit that, if you go down to the lower left-hand corner and you click on the Power BI icon, it gives you all these different personas. Thomas LeBlanc goes through and defines each of the personas for us in each one, but also shows us how we can easily click on one of these personas by clicking on that Power BI icon and getting rid of some of the clutter around it and getting to specifically what you want to do. So great article, really nice, short and sweet, really enjoyed it by the Smiling DBA, right? I love that Twitter handle because Thomas is always smiling.
Yeah. Our good buddy Tabla Rock says, which persona is Data Janitor? I would say all of them, Tom. All of them. If you have access to be able to manage the things in one lake, considering how easy it's going to be for people to bring in data, Data Janitor is the job of pretty much all those different personas. But definitely, I would say a lot of it's going to fall to data engineering. I mean, as a serious question, that's where I think you're going to find a lot of the Medallion architecture. You're going to find a lot of the ETL process. It's going to be under the data engineering portion that I think we're going to see a large part of that. I don't know. Crew, what do you think? It's a great question posed by Tom.
I agree with you, Brad. I think that's where a lot of it's going to land, because a lot of it, since it's now a SaaS service moving for a PaaS service, data engineers are going to play a more pivotal pivotal role here within this environment.
That was easy for you to say.
Yeah, definitely. I go back to, and to echo Brad and Dan, I go back to like, the old infomercials and public service announcements when we were kids. They always stressed, there was one that always stressed, it's all of our responsibility to keep the world clean and pick up litter. And I look at this in the same way. When you start getting into data lakes, including here in Fabric and OneLake, it's all of our responsibility to help keep the world clean, so to speak, and not pee in our data lake. Next question.
All right. Well, I don't know how we follow that, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us from something very low to someone very high, who I think incredibly highly of, and of course I was super just interested in this topic when I saw it, especially because it's normally outside of the wheelhouse of the things that they're bringing to us, and I can't wait to hear from them. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Andreas Padilla, and pre-warming the direct lake data set for warm cache import like performance by again Sandy Pawar, who again has the best handle on Twitter, Pawar BI. Just wonderful work by him. Andreas, take it away, buddy. What do we got here?
Oh man, if you know what goes hand in hand with class, fast. I love this. Yeah, thank you to Sandeep Pawar for putting this out there. I was recently working with a customer and they wanted fast with their Power BI. If you guys don't know what's out there, you can, with Power BI and OneLake, I can work in 3 modes. I got direct query, I got import, and I got direct lake. And direct lake is perfect. It helps me bring in all that Parquet file. I can, access and analyze large volumes of data in Power BI. But even though it's fast, there's some other cool features with direct query that I really love, is that it actually has a fallback. So if you're using the direct lake model and some of your model exceeds limits, or some of the features don't support direct lake mode, you can actually use, if direct lake mode doesn't work, it'll fall back to direct query mode, which is really cool. So fall back. But the cool thing about Sandeep's article is that he showcased one of the best practice of pre-warming your cache, because you're actually going to get, first user effects of, hey, I'm the first one up to the plate, I'm a little slow, I haven't stretched out, and warming up that cache is important. It'll take a little bit longer if you pre-warm it prior to your users getting into it. Hey, I'm going to get better performance. And he shows us how he did that initially with a cold cache. He's getting like 40 seconds sort of latency, and then once he pre-warms it, warms up the cache, he's getting it under a second. Great little tidbit under your hood in your toolbox to make sure, hey, let's pre-warm. Always stretch.
I was gonna say always great stuff. Great advice. Always stretch, but I was gonna say Sandeep Pawar for the win. Once again, just absolutely amazing stuff.
And this might be one of the first time Andreas has spoken about Fabric.
Yeah.
I think so. I that's how I felt too. Like when I saw the link, I did a double check. I was like, wait a second, is that really by Andreas' name?
Neeraj calling him out. Oh,
I know, but hey, that's okay. I mean, look, we got a varied set of interests, but I always love it. We all have different points of view and bring different things to the table. I love learning from you guys. And speaking of someone that I love to learn from, once again, I thought what a very interesting pivot that we've got. Someone who's always knowledgeable, and his hats are as good looking as him. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Josh Luedeman with enhanced monitoring with Azure Postgres Grafana Dashboard. Josh, what do we got going on here?
Yeah, so for me, I was excited to see this because Grafana is definitely, a more popular, dashboarding and reporting tool in the open source community. For a lot of folks, if you're self-monitoring and managing, Postgres in your on-premises environment and you move to the cloud, this is traditionally what you were already going to be using in a lot of cases was Grafana. What this article does here is it walks through, really how to set up, Azure managed Grafana using Azure Monitor to be able to create, the Azure Monitor data source plugin to actually feed that data into Azure managed Grafana so that you can track some of the basics. They've already loaded, the basic template up with database availability, active connection, CPU, storage metrics, all the basic stuff. And then it actually walks you through a little bit of how you would edit the existing dashboard, how you can enhance it, create new things like that. So it's just a great article, especially for folks who maybe aren't that familiar with Grafana and moving into managing Postgres and things like that, how they can deploy this on their own, as well as those folks who are familiar with it, how to do it now in Azure.
Very nice work. Very nice. Speaking of very nice, of course, I'm thinking of our next host and the content that they always bring to the table. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri, Putting Fabric to the Test by Jacob Jensen.
So a nice little article. One thing that I love, the first line, the biggest launch of data product from Microsoft since the launch of SQL Server. So yep, I agree. It's definitely one of the key game changer. And he mentions it why he thinks this is but this is a use case that Jacob has brought it up about AP pension. What they are trying to do is in AP pension, they did play around with the public preview part of it. Now with GA, they're going to go in production. But what he's trying to do is meta-driven architecture. I mean, Medallion architecture is the biggest one right now, right? I mean, everybody, even if you're in Databricks, if you're building it up, people are going to the Medallion architecture, Delta Parquet format and all this stuff. So he's putting that same thing, how he's loading the same scenario through Databricks and also through Fabric, and then giving the use cases how easy, because it's in one environment, how easy it was to build up their environment. Databricks, you can load it up to one lake, right? That's the beauty of it, right? You don't have to go outside of Databricks to do anything. You can still use Fabric along with Databricks as a component in there. So what he's trying to show is the company that he's mentioned, AP mentioned, they are doing the whole Fabric end-to-end testing and putting Fabric to test. So that's a good use case to look at it also.
Yeah, I think it's always really important, especially when we've got a service that is so new. Everybody is looking for, what have you done? What is the best practice, right? There's so many times that people go, what is the best practice for this? And honestly, right now, one of the things that we're doing is we're building the plane as we're flying it. And so it's very important when people are sharing those use case scenarios that allow people to go in there, gain their insights. And of course, what do we discover? We discover paths to success, paths to failure. So that way we can avoid those failures and continue to go on with those paths. And it's a wonderful thing that he contributed to the community with that. Speaking of a great contribution to the community, of course, I'm up next and I've got my good buddy Wolfgang Strausser, and it's Fabric Core Notes at Microsoft Ignite 2023 demos and videos. And what I really loved is what he did was he took pictures from when he was there, notes from this. It reminded me of back in the day when I used to live stream past keynotes or other keynotes for conferences I was at. And it was really, really amazing to look at this, look at the notes that he had, but it made me feel like I was in the keynote. And so I thought this was just a really wonderful blog to be able to see these different points, see some of the demos that were shared on stage. Of course, you can always go and you can watch the YouTube video of the presentation. But it was really cool to see this and to be able to get his perspective on this system. So great blog by Wolfgang. If you weren't able to be there live at Ignite, then I definitely recommend that you go and check that out. But I thought it was very cool. Of course, speaking of very cool, we're up to my next host, right? And of course, I think this person is very cool. And I love this topic. It's very cool. And I'm talking about Mr. Daniel Taylor with Optimizing SQL Server 2022, leveraging auto drop statistics. What do we got here, Dan?
I will tell you, I specifically ran across this article and picked it immediately thinking of you, because I know you and I talk about stats a lot in the histogram. And our friend Yvonne here, who I didn't know was a teammate. So also what I love about doing these things isn't part of the Fast Track team, but part of the Microsoft team. And I was like, oh, cool. So we were talking back and forth via Teams. goes through here the use case for the auto drop statistics, another win of SQL Server 2022, another reason why there's benefit to upgrading it. If we had defined a user statistic on one of our tables today and we tried to alter that column that user statistic was part of, we would get an error. And now with this auto drop statistics, when you build a user defined statistics with this parameter set, when you go and alter the schema, it'll automatically drop that statistic. Now we'll have to go and put it back on there, but you can run a script. So and Yvonne goes through a whole use case scenario, the error, how to get rid of that error, and how we can monitor which columns we have. So really great article. I thought that this was a huge win, not only for Microsoft, but I thought it was a great article by Yvonne describing this scenario.
And take a note, at 24:47, that's when we heard the train.
That, just so folks know, that train, hopefully the bright line will come across that here soon, but that train's almost a mile away, folks. It's not happy.
It's okay. I'm only making that comment because we all heard it, but yeah, last week I thought that was funny that it was your note and your comment. Anyway, so moving on from that, plowing through with the strength of a train, of course, I'm talking about more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap big data in a single bound. It's your friend of mine, Andres Padilla, and you have how to ensure your LLM RAG pipeline retrieves the right documents. What do we got here, Andres?
So Ben Dixon wrote a great article about not only, right now, if you guys have been hearing all the news, OpenAI, but underneath that, what are we really doing? We're doing RAG pattern, and that stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And what we're doing in there is we're pairing our own content and trying to use OpenAI to get better search results. What he talks to us about here in this article, which is what I find very nice, clean, and impressive, is he takes us through the critical steps involved in pairing your data and using search to get that RAG pattern to work. That's your first hump that you have to get over with. You got to get your data. You have to get OpenAI. You have to create a vector database. You got to create your prompt. Then you got to send that big prompt back to OpenAI, and then finally you get a result. Now, the next question customers are asking, or after they've done that initial pipeline, is they have to fine tune it. Well, what can I do to make sure that my results are actually searching on the right documents and giving me as precise of a search as possible? And this is where the gold is in this article, is that he talks to us about what chunking is in a nice, simple, consumable way of breaking up all your content into small, manageable tokens. Okay. And how he gives us actually a sweet spot of what a right chunk size should be. And then he talks about re-ranking, which is another option that you have in order to improve precision, which is, okay, I can get out my initial search, then run another query to make sure that initial search is querying off the right documents, because sometimes you might pull documents that have nothing to do with your initial prompt. You'll be like, well, this is off in left field. Let's filter it starts to filter out those search results and re-rank them in better order, and then goes back and does a second stage search for you. So then you have re-ranking. And then after that, it's fine-tuning, but fine-tuning costs money. Basically, what you have under your sleeve, is you have chunking and re-ranking the retrieved documents. Use those two to fine-tune your search results.
Very nice stuff. I really enjoy it. I always love jumping more into the LLM process, and you always do a great job of keeping us up to date. And speaking of someone who's a trend center who always keeps us up to date, of course, I'm talking about the man in the hat himself, Mr. Josh Luedeman, and he's got integrate your SAP data into Microsoft Fabric. What do we got going on here, Josh?
So I like this article because it really does address not only folks new to data lakes, but also folks who have been in Azure for a while, and may already be extracting their SAP data into an existing data lake. So what this actually goes through is it's a good article just talking through the connectivity options for getting data from your SAP system into Fabric, right? So it talks, not only does it talk to, again, folks new to it. So how do you, getting that connectivity and the options and getting that data moved into one lake. But also in the second half of the article, it goes through, okay, great. We've spoken to all the people new to getting SAP data into a data lake in Azure. Now, for all of you folks who have been doing it for a while, using Data Factory or Synapse pipelines into an existing data lake storage Gen 2, here's how you then connect that into Fabric so you don't have to recreate the wheel, right? I know I'm not the only one in this group of 5, but also I'm pretty sure I'm in good company with our viewers that no one wants to recreate anything from scratch. And so that was for me, like the little nugget in the second half was actually getting into, okay, you've already got it going into Azure. Here's how you now connect that into what you're trying to build in one lake in Fabric. So a lot of great stuff in here, good for new, good for folks who've already been here.
Very nice stuff.
Nice.
All right. Coming around the horn, of course, we are back to my, I was going to say my idol, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. Neeraj, you've got reading and importing data from a PDF file using Microsoft Fabric. What do we got here?
So Nandan gives a good idea. This came up this week with one of my customer. Excel, CSV are the common ones, right? You can always extract data or bring the data into the databases. But one of my customers, like, I have a PDFs, I have tons of PDFs that comes into the picture, and how do we extract that out? Azure ML, definitely, if you're doing the form recognizer or something, it's there, but Fabric also can do it. So what he walks through it is using data flow Gen 2. He brings in the PDF, then he converts the PDF into Azure Blob, and then he extracts the PDF into a table format. He gives you step by step how to convert a PDF into a database type thing that can give you meaningful insights from your PDF. So that is something that was cool. I'm still have to do the POC with the customer, but this is something that might be useful for the customer. So that's why I brought it up.
Oh, I love it. Well, and what I really love about this as well is he does such a great job. He gives you a sample PDF to be able to run through this example yourself. So that way you can follow the code, you can follow what he's doing, and you can find exactly, I was going to say you can find these results exactly for yourself, which gives you some hands-on experience of doing that, which is always a really, really nice thing. Speaking of a really nice thing, of course, what I found Sohili Bakashi, Microsoft Fabric Capacity Options Cost Management's Part 1, the basics. And I love it that it's a Part 1, because one of the questions we always get is cost, capacity. How do I look at these things? Of course, we've got the wonderful Bradley Chat, who has helped us with several videos in our monthly updates. But I really love how this is broken down to be able to look at the different capacity types, to be able to look at things from the point of view of a Power BI user. So if you're a Power BI user and you've already got specific P1 SKUs, or if you've got an embedded SKUs, what works, what doesn't work, he goes through all of that. One of the things that I loved is there was a little bit of a gotcha that I didn't know about, where if you're at an F64, you have to pay for Power BI Pro licenses, but if you're above an F64, you don't have to pay for those Power BI Pro licenses per user, which I found to be really, really interesting. Goes through one lake storage, some of the cost, the way it relates to Power BI, again, the methodology and the capacity, cost, and the options that we have for managing this, scaling up, down, or horizontal. And then looking at how we do those things, pausing and resuming capacity. This is a very good, thorough look at those cost capacity options for Microsoft Fabric. I thought it was a really, really good read, and it was broken down very well. And I enjoyed that it had some insight that I didn't previously had, something I could add to my tool belt. And speaking of things that I can add to my tool belt, well, of course, I'm talking about this next one by, again, tool wielding maniac himself, Mr. Daniel Taylor. Uh, what are Kusto query language databases in Microsoft Fabric?
So haven't spoken about Kuhn in a while. So love the flow, and love how he put here in the insiders about creating. Well, first off, the problem is we have Azure Data Explorer, right? Do we have that a choice of that in Fabric? Absolutely. And goes through, we have the KQL database, right? So it goes through how to set it up, how to ingest data, talks about some of the different samples are out there. I love the weather sample. I'm obsessed with weather. Look, I'm outside a lot. I love hiking. I love fishing. Weather is key to my outdoor life, right? If it's good, it's great. If the barometer's going up and down. So I love the weather set there. But, and then after the article talks about ingesting data, it talks about reading data, and then goes over your favorite command, Brad, or your favorite parameter we could put in there, the explain. If we don't know KQL, we can use the explain to write it for us. But one of the key paragraphs or lines through this is Kuhn asks the question, why do I need to learn KQL? And I've asked myself that question a lot, and breaks it down in one simple statement, is that KQL provides us with better time series functions than SQL does, making it easier and allowing for more dynamic reports. So great article, breaks it down, end-to-end tutorial of how to do this. And, you know, just a great place to start if you're starting with KQL databases.
I was going to say that looked like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to looking into that one a little bit closer. But that's a very good reason to be able to learn KQL, is to be able to do the time series reporting. You're right. There's some exceptional things. Some of the stuff we did on the ISS station, the KQL queries wouldn't have been available if we tried to do them with T-SQL queries. And so there's just some really great stuff there. And speaking of really great stuff, of course, I'm thinking up next, Mr. Andreas Padilla with how to use GPU in Visual Studio Code.
Oh, thank you, Karthik Iyer, for this. You know, I know everybody here is opening up Visual Studio Code. You know, sometimes it starts to, you know, chug along and suffer for me. So I'm like, man, how do I squeeze a little bit more juice out of this orange? Just go into your settings, display settings, and bring up Visual Studio Code and make sure that Visual Studio Code is using its GPU, the GPU on your computer, to do any of that processing, analytics, code debugging. It's fairly simple to set up. It's always better to stick with GPU processing for source code editors. You're going to get better performance and not have to wait around for your Visual Studio, you know, little hourglass to disappear. So quick win for you.
Wow. I had no clue.
Yeah, me too. I was going to say, I spent all this money on a really nice computer with a great GPU. I want to be able to use it. And so I'm loving this. As a matter of fact, I'm moving this over to the side because after we're done with this call, I'm going to be changing my Video Studio Code editor to use my GPU. Really fantastic. Great stuff, Andreas. Everybody out there, make sure you go click on the link. Look at how you do this, because if you've got GPU on board, chances are you do on today's modern computers, you're going to want to do this. And speaking of something that you're going to want to do, I was reading this and, of course, fascinated. And I was fascinated by Mr. Josh Luedeman with integrating private access to your Azure OpenAI chatbot. Josh, break down what you got for me.
Yeah, so this is actually, again, you know, and I try to at least feature, one at least every week or two from one of our teammates here in Fast Track for Azure. This article comes from Jen Sheeran, where she actually does what you probably have seen if you've watched plenty of roundtables, a theme of mine. While I love the great articles of introducing you to a technology, these articles where you're actually going through how do you use it in a real world scenario, I absolutely love these. So what Jen does here is, yes, you've seen one of the great walkthroughs or tutorials to create a chat bot that uses OpenAI, but in a real world scenario, you're not going to just deploy that for all the internet to talk to, right? this article actually walks you through deploying a chatbot within your own network to restrict it to your organization's access and things like that. And she goes through all the prerequisites, both on-prem and in Azure, gives a great, wonderful document and architecture diagram at the beginning, goes through all the subnet planning, all the stuff that I have absolutely no idea about, at least me personally. And it goes through the whole thing end to end, considerations you need to have. And it's just a great article, because Brad, you know this as well. And anyone who's gone to any of my big data talks, a few years ago, even when I was delivering that regularly, that's great. We went through the tutorial of how to build a bot. Now, how do I actually use it in the real world? So just love this article.
And I was going to say, I want to give a shout out to her co-author, Alexandra Miller Brown, who is, of course, on our core team at Fast Track. She's one of our great teammates. I've worked with her on engagements before. I'm sure many of us have. And I was looking at that networking know-how, and I would have no doubt that probably comes from Alexandra's contribution. A great, great blog. You want to make sure you go and check that out, especially if your company is looking at that real world scenario where you are deploying an OpenAI system. All right, gentlemen, that is the end of the content. So it's time to wrap it up. Again, nothing for us to really remind you of at this point. There are wonderful, if you are looking for opportunities to be a speaker, there are wonderful opportunities, Data Toboggan, SQL Saturdays, local user groups. People are winding down for probably this month. You're going to have your local parties where you get together and you have some holiday celebration with some of the members. So make sure and look at those. If you're going to those, we hope you have a fantastic time and you're safe. So for Daniel Taylor, Josh Luedeman, Andres Padilla, and Neeraj Jhaveri, I'm Bradley Ball. Thank you so much for joining us on Tales from the Field. Oh, and be good to one another out there. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Good day, wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.